Marcus G. You mentioned in the Bridge to Nowhere videos that from talking to other OT8s, they have confirmed there are no other levels to be offered after OT8. First, as much as I agree with the fact that they are milking people for more money and fundraising and saying there aren't enough staff to deliver any other levels, there has been a talk about introducing levels 9 and 10 for the past many years. From working for them before, do you know if in fact these levels, especially OT9 called Orders of Magnitude and OT10 called Character, are just made up? Alright, well, I'm not sure that I said that I had talked to a bunch of OT8s and they told me there was no OT9 and 10, because that's not how we know that there's no OT9 and 10. The story actually goes back to some books put out by Marty Rathbun, and stories that have been told or verified or corroborated from those, where the idea was that the history on this is that when L. Ron Hubbard died, there was a guy named Pat Broker who was a CMO messenger, an aide to Hubbard who was working for him. And he was on stage at the event where L. Ron Hubbard's death was announced. And he said that there were these other OT levels all the way up, and I don't think he even said up to OT 15. He just said there were more OT levels that Hubbard had written out, and they needed to do all the compilation of those levels and make them available for public delivery. Now, at that time, OT 8 had not yet been released. So that level was the next level released. And that's been the only OT level released since L. Ron Hubbard died. So there was this idea in all of Scientology, because Pat Broker had made this announcement on stage, that there were other OT levels coming. There was even another event later where it was announced that they even had a special e-meter or device that could register a thetan or a spiritual entity who had exteriorized from the body and was doing auditing activities outside of the body in this special device, that I think they showed a picture of one time, but I've never seen or heard anything about it since. Anyway, this device was supposedly existed, and this was all just tease from the church, right? They were just teasing the public and getting them to pay for more services in the anticipation of eventually getting these next OT levels. In fact, I think this was actually the time period where it was also announced or made known that OT 1 through 7 were the pre-OT levels. They were not true OT levels. They were levels that were being done to prepare you for the real OT levels, which started with OT 8, Truth Revealed. Okay, and this OT 8 was supposed to be the first level where there was going to be positive spiritual gain, is how this was explained, right? And OTs 1 through 7 were all about negative gain, where you were taking things away from the person, stresses, traumas, whatever, kind of just like in the lower OT level or the lower grades of Scientology, you are, erasing things from the reactive mind is the idea. You're taking things away from the person, stress, trauma, this sort of thing connected with these past incidents. And so OT 8 was going to be positive gain for the thetan, and the rest of the OT levels were going to follow. Okay, so the story gets told that Pat Broker has these levels, has all of L. Ron Hubbard's notes and worksheets and directions on what to do, and they're all in the 1 or 2 file cabinets that he had in his possession. So sometime in the late 80s, or after Miscavige had taken power in 87, he arranged with Marty Rathbun and some others a raid on Pat Broker's file cabinets, and they got hold of these file cabinets and they stole them from Pat Broker, and where he had them secured or squirreled away, and they found out, there's nothing really in them. There are no other OT levels. And then the other aspect of this was there was a man named Ray Midoff. He is still around as far as I know at Int Management. He was the senior CS International, senior case supervisor international, the highest technical authority in Scientology. And the person who was supposed to oversee all technical, any further technical developments and the delivery of Scientology worldwide. That was, the buck stopped with him. Well, he's been, sort of demoted, taken off his job, run through the hole like everybody else. We haven't heard from Ray Madoff in years and years and years. But back in the 80s through the 90s, this was the job that he had. And apparently, as the story goes, this is all, hearsay, secondhand, however you want to describe it. He had received some kind of personal direction from Hubbard of some kind and had forgotten. Just forgot it. Couldn't remember what Hubbard had said. And it wasn't like Hubbard had described all the OT levels to him. He just gave him some, direction regarding the next levels or what to do. And he, bumbled it and fumbled it or somehow messed it up. And Miscavige just ruthlessly would rip into him over this, just mercilessly. And that, of course, didn't help Madoff to remember any of this. So those two things are the only pieces of information that have come across my plate regarding these next OT levels and the fact that they simply don't exist. Hubbard never wrote them. So there's nothing there to compile or put together or figure out because it's just a big vacuum. There's just nothing there. I've been asked, and it's been conjectured, well, why doesn't Miscavige just put something together himself and release them? And there's no reason why Miscavige couldn't do that. Since nobody knows what the levels consist of, he can make up anything he wants, and maybe eventually he will. But the other thing Scientologists were told is that these upper OT levels, OT 9 and 10 specifically, are not going to be released until every church, every organization, every Scientology church on the planet is the size of Old St. Hill, which is an expectation of, it's a target that's been set of how big the place is. It has to have so many staff. It has to be viable. In other words, it has to be above the make-break point. It has to be producing on its own. No, it's not being subsidized in any way. It's able to pay its staff. In other words, it's a good, thriving, operating organization. And kind of says something that no Scientology churches in the world right now are St. Hill size, right? There are a couple that were called that at one point, and then they sort of, they'd expanded, got the expansion going, statistics up, and then crashed, right? And oh boy, and never got it back. So they're just fumbling along, with their production. Most of these organizations have maybe at most 50 people coming around on a weekly basis to do services. A St. Hill size church is supposed to have something on the order of 400 or 500 people. It's supposed to have like 100 to 200 staff. It's supposed to be delivering 1,000 plus well done auditing hours. In other words, the counseling hours, the auditing hours. If you were going to, how many hours of that were delivered in a week period, if in a week's time, it should be 1,000 hours. Okay, well, I don't know any churches that are producing at that level other than Flag, the Flag Service Organization in Clearwater, Florida, which is not part of this whole St. Hill size thing, right? We're talking about city-level churches like Denver, Milano, New York, Los Angeles, right? These places. So they're all supposed to achieve this size. They're supposed to be a particular size, and they're supposed to be delivering well, and they're supposed to be delivering a lot, right? And until they're every church from Keokuk to Milano to the one they just opened in Ireland, all these churches are supposed to be St. Hill size. Then and only then will OT 9 and 10 be released. Miscavige has said this many times. He said also very specifically that it was an L. Ron Hubbard directed target that needed to be met, that it wasn't on him. He wasn't the one who made that target up. Hubbard did. So that's another reason why Miscavige has been putting off releasing OT 9 and 10. And so they tease about it, and what they release, or what you might have caught wind of at one point, was when they talk about the prerequisites for OT 9 and 10. And this has happened about 4 times that Miscavige has said, okay, in order to get everybody ready for 9 and 10, you got to do this and this and this and this. And then, 5 years later, it changes. Oh no, now it's this and this and this, right? And another 5 years later, oh no, actually everybody needs to, all the OT8s need to go to the ship, and they need to do this and this and this in order to get ready for 9 and 10, right? And they just trot these prerequisites out every now and again when they feel like needing more, they need to squeeze more money out of the OT8s, and that's how they go about doing it, okay? So it's, it's just this kind of going nowhere, hamster wheel to nowhere sort of thing. And that's why, everything I've told you and my entire answer to this question is why I believe that there is no OT 9 and 10 or any more OT levels. I could be wrong. There could be a file cabinet that has all of them in it, all fully developed, fully written out, ready to go, right? But they haven't been released. And no one who has come out of the church has ever said anything about having seen anything like that. So we all pretty much believe that they don't exist. And that's the answer to the question.